Jeremy, thank you. The founding city of Veterans Day, Emporia, continued its tributes to those who served even with pandemic precautions. 13's Kimberly Donahue starts our team coverage. She traveled to Emporia and asked veterans why the tradition is so meaningful. Kim?
Melissa, organizers of the event say it's important to honor veterans every year so their sacrifices are never forgotten. COVID-19's shadow could not darken the support spectators shined on veterans at Emporia's 67th annual Veterans Day parade. Though crowds were smaller due to the pandemic, people still came out to show their appreciation for those who served.
Feel great. Couldn't ask for better. I just hope it continues. Especially since this town is the beginning of it.
Active duty service members say the holiday holds meaning to them, too.
It makes me feel kind of special. It does. And it just makes me happy knowing that there's a day that we can celebrate ourselves and have people join us and everyone just come together. It's amazing.
Honoring the sacrifices continued at the Veterans Memorial Service.
But it's very important to us that we do this, and we just take every effort possible to make sure it happens.
Veterans say there's power in seeing communities come together with them.
I am so happy and pleased to see how we come together for our troops that are serving today. And coming out on a Veterans Day and being honored like this is a privilege, and it really makes me feel good in my heart for me and all those that made this ultimate sacrifice.
Organizers are hopeful they'll have a return to regular events next year. Melissa?
Beautiful day and good to see them continuing their tradition in Emporia, Kansas. A local Air Force veteran in Topeka, Herschel Stroud, proudly honored those who sacrificed their lives for our country. Stroud joined buglers nationwide in playing taps at precisely 11:11 a.m. today. The retired Topeka dentist went to Gage Park's Veterans Memorial to sound off. He's been playing taps since 1945.
And still playing it well. Our Flint Hills Veterans Coalition sponsored their annual Veterans Day parade in Manhattan early today. Parade goers kept their distance from each other down Points Avenue. They waited for their entries to make their way down the street. The Veterans Coalition held its annual presentation right after the parade, and especially Korean War veterans were honored this year. The virus didn't stop the oldest Veterans Day observance in the country from happening in Leavenworth, Kansas today. Here's a look at that, as the theme for this year is Second Century of Honoring Our Veterans. This event has taken place since 1919. The parade is touted as the biggest one west of the Mississippi and a century after the end of World War I. But it had fewer entries this year to keep in line with the social distancing guidelines. If you were not there, we're glad to show it to you, and you can check it out on the City of Leavenworth's Facebook page.
Washburn Rural High School's Air Force Junior ROTC found a way to share their ceremony today. To avoid a crowd, they instead live streamed it to the rest of their school. The ceremony started by presenting the American flag and the national anthem. The honor guard then placed 5 hats representing each of the branches of the armed services on a table that recognized veterans who went missing in action, were prisoners of war, or killed in action. Cadets planned this entire event. A local Vietnam veteran was honored today for his service and sacrifice to our nation. 13's Alyssa Willits continues our team coverage. She captured the moment when Gerald Applehands received his Quilt of Valor.
Melissa, Quilts of Valor is a nationwide organization that awards handmade quilts to veterans as a symbol of gratitude for the sacrifices they've made for our freedoms. Veteran Gerald Applehands was nominated by former employee and Navy veteran Mick Kroom for a Quilt of Valor.
I received the quilt, and I felt I had to pay it forward to somebody.
Applehands served 2 tours in Vietnam with the U.S. Marines, where he was awarded 2 Purple Hearts.
We were covering the backside, and all of a sudden the ground just opened up, and dirt and mud started flying everywhere, and the blast actually got me before the shrapnel did, and then, so then it spun me around and I had shrapnel up the back.
When he returned home from war, Applehands says it was a different experience than what soldiers receive now.
I'm glad that the soldiers are getting supported. When I came back through, of all places they sent me back through was San Francisco. And if you remember that time, San Francisco was not the place for a soldier. And I don't wish that on anybody.
While he doesn't see himself as a hero, Appelhahn says he's dedicating this quilt to those he served beside that didn't make it home.
I went over with 80 guys, and only 15 came back. I'm not doing this for just me. I'm greatly honored, for me, But like I say, I think more of the people that don't get it.
The quilt was donated by Schwartz Design Group and made by a member of the Topeka Quilts of Valor.
It looks beautiful and quite an honor. Alyssa, thank you for that. We want to show you the Topeka couple trying to provide a common bond among those impacted by military service, and they're doing that with their new book. Well, I especially like to see when a new book's coming out. Joseph Hennessy learned the story of this Vietnam War veteran and his wife. Joe?
Ralph, Steve Williams was drafted and served 1 year in Vietnam. He and his wife, Rosie, say his life changed when he returned. After 50 years, he's found the words to explain his struggles. Steve Williams' service in the Army's 101st Airborne Infantry during the Vietnam War stayed with him in ways others don't see.
For instance, you can look at a tree during the summertime, and sometimes there's a spot of leaves that are dead where the others are green. Well, that's nothing to most people. For me, that's a sniper. And, well, I'm home. I shouldn't have to worry about that now, but I was trained to recognize that.
He didn't want to admit he was struggling in civilian life when he came home in 1970. Rosie, his wife, says she struggled too.
When he first came home back in 1970, we didn't know what PTSD was. And so what it was our commitment to each other carried us through. Our faith in God carried us through. And then when the hard times hit, we just dug in.
Rosie wrote 2 books about the stories Steve shared, but she wanted him to open up about the trauma he experienced himself. Steve says a call from his son last year convinced him.
He said, "Dad, I want your stories in writing for my children, my grandchildren." And I'm going, wow, that pushed me over the edge.
Steve titled his book 9 Pairs of Boots in Vietnam. For the 9 pairs of boots he went through in his year as an infantry point man. He outlines 9 steps to healing and how he and Rosie lean on their faith.
We were talking one day about how do we address that, without in a way that people could relate to. And Steve said, well, you really, in order to get healing, you have to believe in the healer. And when he said that, it really struck a chord with me.
Steve says it took 50 years to write down what he's learned. He hopes it helps others move forward as well.
This book actually is good for any vet, especially combat vets, but it's also good for anybody that's been through trauma, not necessarily military.
They gave out about 100 books to veterans and sold about 100 just today. You can find their book on their website. We have a link to it at WIBW.com.
We will look and search for that. Joe, thank you very much. Veterans were honored with music at this Topeka neighborhood. Beautiful for spacious skies. These patriotic singers are from Cornerstone Family School, stopping by the Mayfair Place gated community. That's at 37th and Burlingame Road. Veterans and their loved ones were serenaded from a distance, of course, and they were given roses. The group Deo Gloria sang the songs of each of the branches of the military, and everybody in the community put up storyboards to share the stories of some of their resident veterans. Beautiful to hear that. A local World War II veteran is offering advice to young people who might be considering joining the armed forces. Junior Elder, he turned 100 recently. He had joined the National Guard and served 2 active years in the Army. On active duty, he says young people can take pride in serving our nation, and they'll have opportunities to learn lots of life skills.
Be a good working experience. There's a lot of jobs to be done in the service. Anyone can do them. If I could do them, anybody could.
Junior Elder went on to spend about 40 years as director of the Selective Service, serving our state of Kansas, and he recently retired, receiving a Quilt of Valor.